next year. Waiting for next year.
Welcome to the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. I'm Tom Valentino. Craig has given me the keys to the car tonight. I am joined by Holly Wetzel, who has worked in the sports media business, worked on the distribution side. She contributes to one of my favorite sites, awfulannouncing.com. She writes on a variety of subjects, including the regional sports network business. Holly, welcome to the WFNY pod.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. So a big piece of business went down last week with Disney, which of course is the parent company of ESPN, buying up a bunch of properties from Fox. You wrote about this on Awful Announcing. So just to kind of get us started, catch us up. What exactly is Disney getting in this deal, and what is Fox holding on to?
Yeah, big news last week. Definitely caught me by surprise. Fox is selling off their 21st Century Fox business. So that includes the regional sports networks, the entertainment networks like FX and National Geographic Channel, and also the 20th Century Fox Film Studio and the Fox Television Studio. So huge deal. I believe it was $52.4 billion when the announcement was made. So it's a lot of content going to Disney, and a lot of and all the Marvel content too, which is a really big deal to them as well.
All right, and the regional sports networks, those are going to be changing hands here, right? That includes Fox Sports Ohio and STO here in Cleveland.
Correct. Yep. 22 regional sports networks, which obviously include Fox Sports Ohio and Sports Time Ohio and Yes Network in New York, which is home of the Yankees. So yes, all of the regionals across 22 total.
Now this still needs to be approved by the regulators and all the people, the powers that be, so to speak. But no real reason to think this wouldn't go through, right? This is pretty much good to go.
Yeah, I haven't read. What I've been able to gather is that there shouldn't really be any really large nails in the coffin on this one. I think that it will go through eventually because of the deal and what what Fox is selling off, and then what Disney is getting out of it. Again, I don't know a lot of those details, but I do know that from what I've been able to read and stuff, that yes, it's definitely going to probably go through. There's no major red flags with this.
Yeah, the podcast I normally host on WFNY is called A Nail in the Coffin, so certainly appreciate that subtle plug there. That was well done.
Do what I can.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, all right, explain to me just kind of the thinking on both sides here. I mean, what is Disney getting out of this? Why are they doing this? And, well, let's start with them first, because I've got some follow-up questions on the Fox side of it as well.
Yeah, well, obviously the biggest part is the sports end for ESPN. They have been teasing us with the ESPN Plus app for a long time now, and it's supposed to unveil in the spring of 2018. They've been very, very quiet about what exactly it's all going to entail, whether it's going to be a standalone subscription service. This was probably, well, I don't know, within the last 3 to 5 years, when Moffett-Nathanson would go through and report the value of subscriber fees for channels. I mean, an ESPN standalone channel has always been upwards of anywhere between, $30 to $40. Again, obviously, a lot of those models have changed with a lot of the new streaming services, but this is going to give ESPN such a huge amount of product and content to be able to disperse across the app. And it'll be interesting to see if they do end up doing it a la carte, because they're going to be able to do different price points probably. And with the regional sports network piece, you may be able to get it regionally. I mean, there's so many different avenues that they could take with this. And they already have a plethora of content of their own on ESPN3. And I think they could take that and put it all onto the regional sports networks. So it's a great deal for them. And it worked out for Fox because they were able to unload. And I think that, Rupert Murdoch, it took me by surprise because he has always been one to acquire and not sell. And he took this deal. And I think personally, when he tried to go after the Time Warner Inc. Content, and he offered up, I think it was like $80 billion or something. It was outrageous. Please don't quote me on that one. It was a lot of money. Time Warner said no. And I think when that happened, I think is when he decided that that was not the route he was going to take. They have obviously such a huge following with the Fox News program and Fox Business, and with the election this past year, obviously boosted the ratings quite a bit. Now they've been going through obviously a lot of the sexual harassment and their own scandals, and ESPN is not, and Disney is not. They're also obviously going through a lot of that, but this is going to save face, I think, for both of them on that front. And they're, Fox is going to be able to take a pivot and go towards the news and business side, and ESPN's going to be, and Disney's going to be able to focus back on the entertainment, and also obviously the sports, and become the worldwide leader of sports.
I'm still surprised though on the Fox side, just because you've still got, all the different sports properties that are on Big Fox, the network. And then obviously they've still got Fox Sports 1, which is the cable channel, that they've been trying to build now for a few years to kind of be a competitor to ESPN. You get, the baseball playoffs, I think some regular season MLB on there. I think, do they put any of the US Open on FS1, or is that? Yep.
On both Big Fox and
right.
Fox
Okay.
1. So yeah, so Big Fox they're keeping Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2, and Big Ten. That was the one channel I wasn't, Fox owns half and then the conference owns the other half, and I hadn't heard much about what they were going to do with Big Ten, but they are keeping it. They just invested in the Big Ten deal. That's why, the Ohio State Michigan game was on Big Fox this past year. And
that was weird.
Yeah. So, and they paid a pretty penny for it. And, they have the World Cup coming up as well. So, they have a lot of those major events. I'm sure that a lot of it has to do with certain contracts, and they want to see the revenue out of that. It's a good why they sold. Obviously, we're starting to see a little bit more of a reason why behind he chose to do this, but you're right. They spent so much time and money and effort into trying to build themselves as a competitor. And I really thought, they had taken look at all the talent that came over from ESPN, over to Fox and Fox Sports 1. I mean, there's very, very heavily invested in that. And to see them sell away, even the Fox Television Studios, which is the Big Fox programming, nightly programming, they're selling off that studio. I've heard that that Disney is going to be renting space now on the Fox lot, which is just wild. But yeah, I mean, they built these huge Fox Sports 1 studios. Do I think they're going to keep Fox Sports 1 and Fox Sports 2 and Big Ten when those contracts run out? The big contracts run out? No, I don't. I think they're going to obviously get rid of those. And they're just completely, sounds like and looks like they're pulling completely out of sports.
Wow. I mean, Fox has had the World Series now, I think, since, about 96? It would be a pretty big change there, not to mention, all the other properties, a lot of the college sports that they're in, even beyond the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten's obviously the big one for them now, but, I think they, do some work with the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and some others. So
yeah, they have some rights to those. And then, they also, the Big Ten piece was a really large piece that they had kind of kept quiet, but they are going to keep. And, a lot of these contracts that they do, like I said, they'll probably keep through the end, and then the channels will probably dissolve. And it will be interesting to see what they do with Big Fox and that programming too. They're keeping the locally owned Fox stations as well. Around here, Fox does not own the local Fox TV station here in Cleveland. but they do own quite a few, and they make a lot of money off of retransmission consent, which is basically they're charging, obviously, per subscriber to the provider that's passed on to you as a customer. And so if you take a look at your bill, if anyone's still a cable subscriber, you'll see there's a broadcast fee on there, probably $3 to $4. You'll see a regional sports network fee, $3 to $4. And really the regional sports networks, and I know I'm kind of going off from a bunch of different places, but the regional sports networks are the cash cow of, especially for Fox. I mean, they're getting anywhere between, $2, $3 up to $9 to $11 a sub, which is a lot when you try to narrow down however many subscribers each provider has. And those are all negotiated directly. So that's where a lot of the money was coming from. And from what it looks like is it's just not enough anymore to also keep afloat a lot of the national channels, like FX and like National Geographic Channel. A lot of the regional sports network fees were covering the cost to produce those. So obviously they saw the writing on the wall with that too, that it's just they can't afford to do it anymore.
All right, so let's get into the regional sports networks that are here in Cleveland. I've got Fox Sports Ohio on in the background, watching the Cavs-Bucks game as you and I talk here, and then obviously STO has the Indians. What I think you had started to touch on this a little bit earlier, but what do you see changing in terms of programming on those two channels, assuming all this goes through? Mm-hmm.
Well, that's going to be the most interesting part because ESPN is not in the regional sports business, obviously, at all. And I think there's a couple things. The fact that they're selling now tells me that a lot of the local contracts they have with the teams are not up anytime soon. They're probably locked up for a long time. So there's not going to be any type of negotiation with the teams on a local level, at least for the next few years. And it also tells me that they have long-term deals locked up with the biggest providers, DirecTV, Cox, Dish, Time Warner, which is now Spectrum. Those are the big players, and that tells me too that they have those locked up as well. And you can't forget about the independent providers. There's not that many anymore, but also that they probably have locked up deals with them too. So it's a good time to sell. But what they decide to do with the program now, like I said, they won't probably have to do too much within the next few years. But it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. They're obviously going to keep the programming. I don't think there's going to be too much that changes on a local level. You still need people, boots on the ground, production, running these. Do I think that regionals could be combined? Yeah, almost every regional has their own office, from what I understand. There are some that are combined. Fox has turned their regional sports networks into a turnkey, low cost, keep the money in the live sports type business. And that's why outside of the live programming, there isn't much on TV. There's outside of that's live. I mean, there are, when you look on Sports Time Ohio, the Bruce Drennan show. Do I see that hanging on? I love Bruce. I hope so. I don't think so, to be frank. STO was one of the last, if only few, regionals that had live programming on it outside of the games and the pre and post. So, and then I think that they'll be able to take, like I said, the ESPN3 programming, games, and they'll be able to put them across the regionals. And then when those contracts are all up in the next few years with the independent providers, with the major providers, they're going to have to renegotiate. They're going to have to do a rate reset. And this ESPN app, I think that we'll know more once they divulge a little bit more about the ESPN Plus app.
All right.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, but I do have a couple questions about that app, but just real quickly about STO. I thought it was really interesting what you had mentioned about their programming being kind of unique, because the one thing I kind of noticed was there was a real shift in what they put on, I felt like, once Fox took it over, because that had been launched, I think, by the Indians ownership, right? That was how that channel
well,
initially...
It was on Sports Channel Ohio, and then and it was Fox, and then I think the ownership took it over and started STO. I think in 2006.
Yeah. No, so I had noticed that back prior to Fox getting involved with STO, you saw things like a lot of MAC sports on there. I'm an OU graduate. I love watching the Bobcats.
Yep.
And that was one of those things that went away, and it went to ESPN3 largely. That's a whole separate deal. I can get into it in a second here, but a lot of the high school sports were on, the state championships were on STO, and that was another thing. Both of those, the MAC and the OHSAA stuff, all seem to kind of go away. And I've noticed that it seems like STO now kind of has, the fourth best ACC game on at a given time, or things like that. So when you talk about it becoming a little bit more turnkey and probably uniform as to what you're getting in some of the other regional channels that Fox owns, that I could see how that might be kind of what you're describing.
Yes.
But yeah, like I thought it was interesting, like what the MAC did. They kind of jumped on the digital bandwagon. It seemed early. They've been working with ESPN. Building, I think, their broadcasting capabilities up and, streaming all their, football and basketball that doesn't get picked up by a traditional TV network, and then some of their other sports as well. And I think just about all the schools have got that up and running. So are you thinking that some of that stuff might start making its way back onto the local TV here?
It's definitely a big possibility, I think. Yeah, I mean, they didn't see the value, from what I understand, it seems like, to keep the MAC or to keep the high school product, whether it was pricing, whether it's just, they just, like I said, didn't see the value or the return on what they were looking for. But yeah, I mean, making these regional networks all similar and, like I said, turnkey and the same. I mean, you could go on to any given channel probably across the country. Say if you add, it was always funny, people think that they get a regional sports network pack from their cable provider, they're going to get all the regional product, which includes professional product. That's just not the case. You're going to get all the regional sports networks with the exact same programming on it across the board. And that was another way that they were able to keep the costs low, because all of the money and production's expensive. It's very, very expensive to put on a live event, and they cut those production costs hugely when they got rid of when they're able to just put all of their money into the live pre and post games, and then they backed off even from a national level, which filtered down to local, of being a reporting and being a source, sports news outlet. That you weren't going to Fox Sports Ohio or STO or any other regional sports network that they own for breaking news. That just wasn't that started to pivot. I mean, in Sports Time Ohio beforehand was at everything, and they were breaking certain news, I think. And that when they adopted STO, that all went away. And another way Fox gained with Sports Time Ohio is that instead of taking just the Indians product and putting it on Fox Sports Ohio and getting a full-time second channel, which a lot of the regional sports networks do, they kept it its own channel, which means it's a whole other subscriber fee, which is double the money. So, I mean, the way that they did it was great, and the rate increase that they had to get across the board was very high, and you didn't see any drops. There weren't any major network drops, and I think recently what hurt them on a national level was the Yes Network and Comcast last year. I think it was last season or the season before. They couldn't get a deal done with Comcast and Yes Network. And the Yankees weren't on, and I think it was like 900,000 homes or something like that across New York. So it really hurt that business. So I think that they see that there is a ceiling. I think that we get caught up and think that there isn't, and they're going to charge whatever they want. And I think, the bubble finally burst a little bit, and they saw that they couldn't continue to raise those rates, and even making them as low cost and, low efficient type networks where they just were pumping out live games throughout the season, especially Sports Time Ohio with just the Indians on for only part of the year. It's amazing that even that anymore was not cutting it. So yeah, but I do think a lot of that product, now that's under ESPN's wheelhouse, can definitely come back. It opens up the doors a lot for all of that ESPN3 programming to be put across the regionals and just distributed regionally. So yeah, there's a ton of opportunity. They're going to have so much content, they're not going to know what to do with it. And I think that when it comes to the regionals and how they operate, like I said, I think they're going to stay status quo for the next few years. And then ESPN will get, their hands on it, and they'll get the look. And, but you are going to need people, like I said, boots on the ground type thing. And, so I think for a while, we won't see too much change right away.
Okay. So this ESPN service, this over-the-top service or streaming service, whatever you want to call it, that we've been alluding to a few times here, just to be clear, this is a separate product from Watch ESPN or just the regular ESPN app that you might have on your phone or your iPad or something like that you're watching now. And right? This is something totally different?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the Watch ESPN, you obviously have to have a subscription to a cable subscription to log in and watch, or a streaming service. I personally have DirecTV Now, and I can log in to the Watch ESPN app with my DirecTV Now credentials and watch my programming. It would, from what they've been able to tease and hint, for them to make this large move, the only thing I can think of is that it is going to be a standalone sports streaming service app, like an HBO Now, that you can get over the top, and that you can also get with your provider, but then you can get over the top as well separately. That's something that I know Skipper at ESPN has teased for a very long time. And, it's going to revamp the Disney product too. And they're going to offer I know they're going to start to offer a Disney standalone app as well with a really good price point. So that this is going to change the way that, the landscape has already changed so much. And I just think that this is really going to, really make everyone do a 180 with how they're getting their product and their content. And, I think that's why they're being so tight-lipped about it. Because it's going to be, I think, a very large unveiling. And for them to be this quiet about it, I think it's going to really change, like I said, the entire landscape. And finally give everyone what they've been wanting, a standalone app. And I think there's going to be they could make tiers with it. They could, maybe you just want your own regionals. Maybe you want, all of them across the country, depending on the rights when it comes to territories and all of that. And they don't want to, I know the deals that they have with the leagues. I know that Disney, they have BAMTech, which is the back end for MLB. And, so no, there's so many moving parts with this. So it'll be really interesting to see, but yeah, I think it's ESPN Plus, I believe is what they're calling it. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really, really neat service, when they do decide to unveil it. And I'm hearing spring of 2018.
All right. So you briefly alluded to Skipper in the middle there. That's now former ESPN president John Skipper. Yeah. That was the other big story that broke. That came through yesterday that he had resigned. He's walking away from ESPN to address what he's calling a substance addiction. I think if anybody follows sports media business or they care about sports TV in general, Skipper, I'd say he's as big as they come. And, I'd say he's been really the central figure in reshaping ESPN and what we know ESPN to be over the last few years. So that's a pretty big deal. Do you anticipate his departure and kind of the shakeup and leadership that's going to be happening here over the next few months, kind of resetting the timeline and any of the stuff that they've got going on, especially with this ESPN Plus app, or maybe anything else that we've been looking forward to?
I don't think so. I think this was all very strategically done. I think they made this announcement. They did that round of playoffs. They made the announcement, and then about the purchase of Fox, and now Skipper's exiting for now. And I know it took a lot of people by surprise, but really at the end of the day, but both between Fox and ESPN and Disney, no one at that level are making any rash decisions, and everything is very carefully thought out and planned. And I can't help but think that this was just the next part of the announcements to come. I don't think it's going to change anything. I think they know what they have in the works and what they need to do. I haven't read anywhere that it was a complete shocker to the higher ups and any type of big shakedowns, and maybe there's not anything out of there yet about it, and maybe there'll be more to come. But no, I think that they knew what they were doing when they released the information, and they have their ducks in a row.
Okay. All right. Well, just kind of open it up here. Anything else on the sports media biz side that we should be keeping an eye on as we head into the new year? It just feels like the whole landscape in general is really kind of shifting and evolving, and there's just so many pieces moving, and a lot of different players kind of getting into the business that, really haven't even been there as we've traditionally known it to be.
Yeah, I think, there's two, there's a one great thing and I think one negative. I think one of the greatest things is that we are now able to get so much content at our fingertips whenever we want it. And there's so many different ways to get it. It's so easy. There's so many options, and it's still, the streaming services are very affordable at the end of the day. Obviously what the price of what's going up is the Wi-Fi that you're paying for, the internet service. So that's in the sense of having content however you want it, when you want it, in so many different ways. I think that's probably one of the best parts. I personally am I'm a TV and movie fiend. I watch, binge every show. I'm into it. And, so for me, especially, I guess it's funny, they want to call, people that have streaming services cord cutters, and they're really not. I think it's just a different way of getting content now. A cord cutter is getting broadcast channels, with an antenna, and having Netflix, or paying the $7.99 a month for the Netflix or whatever. Streaming services cut that out because they saw the writing on the wall and they wanted to make a change and have new offerings. But really, the networks are still paying the same amount. The providers are still paying the networks the same amount of money, if not more, to be able to deliver that programming. And then they're marking up all of the money on the internet. That's how a lot of independent cable companies survived for so long and still are in business, because if they had another offering like the internet, that's where they were making their money. They weren't making any money off of the video end of the cable end anymore. So in that sense, I think it's awesome that there's so many now options, and I can't wait for the ESPN Plus app. I think that they're really going to be unveiling something big. The negative thing is the mergers. It's really put a damper on when it comes to options outside of who owns what. I always thought that it was going to be Fox, Disney, and CBS at the end of the day. Just AMC and A&E and Viacom, and all of those were going to be scooped up, merged, or just done away with. So, and it's hard. There's not a lot of. It's a big monopoly on the market. There's not a lot of then options. Look at the mergers when it comes to the providers: AT&T, DirecTV, Time Warner, and Spectrum. Those types where your options for choosing those are no more. So the mergers, it's tough. I mean, it's hard for competition. I mean, look, the fact that Fox sold is huge. When they were never, like I said, Rupert Murdoch was never a seller; he was a buyer, and it's hard to see that go down. I'm sad about Fox Sports 1 and the regionals. I think that they took a turn becoming this turnkey type of business. And while the thought and was behind that was good, and made sense for the teams and for the networks, it just wasn't a viable business, obviously, and it wasn't helping. And so ESPN is good at let ESPN do what they do. They're good at it. But I think the mergers is a really hard part, and I think that's only going to continue to happen. A lot of the independent providers will continue to go under, get purchased. A lot of the independent providers I worked with over the years had the major providers knocking down their doors trying to pick up their areas, and so it's sad to see those, and a lot of people are going to lose their jobs on the distribution side, the side that I worked on, across the board, across all the major networks, because there's not going to be anything left to negotiate when those networks go by the wayside. So there's just it's hard. There is changing, but then again, there's also, you're looking for light at the end of the tunnel because the landscape changed so much. There's going to be new opportunities, especially on the digital side and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, the mergers are probably the worst part of this.
Well, I was going to say on the digital side, that's where I think this starts to get kind of interesting in terms of just some players in the sports broadcasting business that we're not used to. I mean, we've kind of seen the NFL dip its toe in the waters in terms of having Thursday night football games shown on Twitter, or what's the other one that I think they've had a few games with
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, Amazon Prime, and I think they did a kind of a test run on a one of those NFL Network games on Yahoo last year. Mm-hmm. We've heard Facebook is thinking about trying to get into this as well, and it's just strange to think about. Coming to a day where it's probably not too far off where you're going to be like, oh, okay, I want to watch the Ohio State game this afternoon. Is it on Fox or is it on Facebook?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And maybe that specific example, I don't know how the contracts are all shaken out, but I mean, there'll come a day when, plug your favorite team in here, that actually is going to be a real thing.
Oh yeah. And, Fox started that, I think, with the regionals when it came to the Fox Sports Go app. The idea behind the Fox Sports Go app was couch rights. So anywhere you go, you take your login and you're able to watch your games anywhere. I would go down to visit my sister in Charleston, log into my Fox Sports Go app last year on Christmas, and and watch games, and so on that front, that is what the consumer wants. They want to be able to have their own teams and what they want to watch, no matter where they are. And I think that was a big part, and I think ESPN is going to take that and run with it. And across the board with all the leagues, like you mentioned, the NFL on Amazon Prime and Twitter, and doing these different tests. Do I think that those networks will be like the number one place to go and watch a game? No, I think it's just going to add more options. I mean, you can watch Thursday night football like 7 different ways anymore. So it's
and the games are usually terrible no matter what platform you're watching them on. But
right, and the amount that money that was paid for Thursday night football is just insane. You can watch it on, like I said, bunch of different channels. So I don't think that's going to be, I think those are going to be extra options. And I think you're going to see a lot of those starting to, probably a little bit more test runs with those. But yeah, I mean, it's everything's changed. When I first got into this side of the business, it was, well, you can carry this network and you don't have to carry this network. And then it became, and yeah, we'll negotiate with you and we'll start out at this rate and you can go back and forth with me and we'll meet in the middle. And then it went to, well, you got to carry this channel and then you have to carry this channel too, or you can't get that channel. And then we can still negotiate on price. And then it was, well, you know what? It's a take it or leave it. And I think that's when, the cookies kind of started to crumble. And, obviously then all these other options came about for streaming and over the top and digital and being able to get your products. So, I think those are going to be options and stuff, but, it's been amazing to watch this entire process evolve over the years.
And I think it's only going to get crazier from here. It's a wild landscape out there these days. So
it is.
Good stuff. All right, Holly, this has been awesome. Anything else on the biz that's ruminating in your mind that you wanted to bring up that we haven't touched on?
No, I think we covered most of it. Like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the ESPN Plus app. Fox is taking a big turn into the news side of things, and broadcasting and keeping their broadcasting channels, and Fox Sports 1 and 2, which I think will eventually go by the wayside. And to see what other big players emerge this year. We never saw this coming, especially. So there's always going to be shakeups but the best part, I think, about living in the time that we do and the options that we do, they're unlimited. So it's been fun so far to watch. And I'm excited for this coming year.
Good stuff. Holly, this has been awesome. Thanks a lot for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. So we're going to link to your article on Awful Announcing about the Disney Fox deal. So I would encourage everybody to go give that a read. And you should be checking out Awful Announcing all the time anyway. If you're into the sports media business, it's a really great site. And Holly's a regular contributor over there. As for us, I encourage everyone to check out the podcast where you could normally find me. That is the aforementioned Nail in the Coffin. It's a weekly show that I host with my good buddy Travis Yulee. We just hit our 100th episode, which you can stream on waitingfornextyear.com, and we should have another new one up later this week. Probably going to be talking Cavs Warriors, which is going to be coming up on Christmas Day. Our thanks again to Holly Wetzel. Be sure to check out her work on awfulannouncing.com. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. I'm Tom Valentino. We will catch you again soon.